In this lesson, we will learn about structural elements. Structural elements are designed to contain or house other elements, and their entire purpose is to give additional semantic meaning or organization to our HTML pages. In order to learn about the different structural elements that are at your disposal, we are going to complete an exercise together. In front of you is an example page that I have set up for this lesson, and currently it does not use even a single structural element. So our goal is to review this page together and wrap structural elements around the existing content in order to create more well-structured code. Let's begin with a bird's eye view of the page. This seems like the header of the page because it includes the largest heading and then a slogan. You can see that this is an article. It's got the date, a bit of text, and then a bit of metadata telling us which category the article was posted in and that it doesn't have any comments. This looks like another article. This looks like a sidebar, which many websites include. It's simply a place that houses relevant content to the website as a whole. And this looks like the website's footer area. Now that we've identified the main building blocks of the page, let's jump to the fun part. Let's head over to our text editor and begin wrapping structural elements around the content. The first two structural elements that I want to introduce you to are named header and footer. So if we look at the web page again, we had said that this seemed to be the header of the website, and this bit of text down here appeared to be the footer. So with that in mind, in our text editor, let's wrap these two elements inside a header element and indent them just to stay organized. And then let's scroll to the bottom, and this is the bit of text that we identified as the website's footer. So there's an element named footer. The next structural element that I would like to introduce you to is named article. If we look at our web page, we had mentioned that this looked like one article, and this looked like a second article. Now the element's name is a bit self-explanatory, article. So we can use this when we have an article or a blog post or any other bit of content that can stand on its own, that's cohesive even without any of the other content on the web page. So in our code, let's find the first article and wrap it in the article element. So here is all of the code. So our start tag will be here. Our end tag will be here. And then let's go ahead and indent this content. So our first article is complete. Let's go ahead and wrap the article element around the second article. So it begins here and it ends here. So the start tag, article, the end tag, article, and then let's indent the content. Now that we've created article elements, I'd like to revisit the header and footer structural elements. When we used the header element earlier in the lesson, we did so to signify that this bit of content was the header of the entire document or website, and there should only be one top-level header. However, we can also use the header element for sections of content or in our articles. So for example, within this article, we can designate the title and the date as a header. So in our code, here's our first article. We can wrap the name of the article and the date of the article inside another header element. The same can be said for the footer element. So you'll remember that we initially used the footer element for the footer of the entire document or website down here at the bottom of the page. And there should only be one top-level footer. But again, within bits of content, within our article, we can designate this metadata area as the footer of the entire article. So within our text editor, I'll find that bit of text. Here it is. And I'll wrap it in footer. Very quickly, let's do the same for our second article. Let's wrap the header inside a header and the footer inside a footer element. So the second article starts here. This content is the header, and this content is the footer. To review, so far we've learned 3 structural elements. Number 1, header. Number 2, footer. And number 3, article. The fourth and final structural element that we will learn in this lesson is named aside. The aside element is used for a section of the page which is related to the content surrounding it, but should be viewed as separate from that content. So for example, in our second article, there is a glossary section. And this glossary is a great example of a place where we can use the aside element. So the glossary is where we can define terms that are used in this article, which means it's definitely related to the article, but it's not exactly part of the article's body content. It's an aside. So in our code, we can find that second article and identify where that glossary text sits and wrap it in an aside element. Now you are free to have multiple asides on a page. So if we look at our page in the browser, I think we'll notice that this sidebar area is also a good candidate for the aside element. So let's find that bit of content in our text editor. Here it is. And we'll wrap that in an aside element as well. When using the aside element, it's important to remember the Russian stacking doll analogy, and it's important to pay attention to elements' direct parent. So for example, when using the aside for the sidebar, we should make sure that this content is related to its direct parent. Now, the sidebar's direct parent is the body element itself. So that means whatever content goes inside this sidebar should be relevant or in some way related to the entire page itself. Whereas our glossary, its direct parent was the article. So it only needs to be related in some way to the content of the article. With that rule in mind, and with our asides now in place, our page is complete. Our goal was to add structural elements to give additional organization and semantic meaning to our page. To review, we learned about 4 new elements: header, footer, article, and aside. We're well on our way to writing more organized code. I'll see you in the next lesson.